everyone, we're going to be speaking about MPEG-H audio, and we're going to be setting up a Nuendo session from the easiest way to the manual way, which might be probably the hardest way to do it, but we will explore everything that we may need to do to have a session ready for MPEG-H very quickly. So let's begin. So we're going to be setting up Nuendo for MPEG-H audio, and we're going to go through 3 different ways to do it, which is using the template that comes with Nuendo 13. The next one will be using the setup assistant, which makes it very easy to set up a session for MPEG-H. And the final one will be exploring every detail we have to do if we want to set it up manually. And also we will be talking about the renderer, because everything happens in there, and we have to we can explore everything that we have in there so that we can set up our projects beforehand and for MPEG-H audio, and so that we can set it up correctly for our needs, because it's a very interesting system. So with further ado, let's begin. So here we have our Steinberg hub, and I wanted to show you that we are basically now in our templates tab, and we have here our audio post-production MPEG-H template for us to work already with. So all we have to do in this case, which is the easiest way to have an MPEG-H session already done, is just to create one. So we're going to say that to it. I'm going to say put it in there, and we already have our session ready. So let's just save it. Let's call it 2. And you can see we have our renderer here already set up. We have our ADM Authoring Window set it for already MPEG-H, and all our tracks are distributed over here. And we even have some presets already, the default one, a clear speech, and an interactive. Everything is there. So if you want to do a project quickly, all you have to do is create your content, bring it in, move it to these tracks, and you have everything set up for to begin your mix with MPEG-H audio. So this is the first one, and this is obviously the easiest way to do it. We can even duplicate tracks, and it will maintain every preference on each track, which is something that Nuendo does. And so that's it. We're ready to begin our mix. Let's go for the second way to set up quickly an MPEG-H audio session with Nuendo. So we are about to create our session or make our mixing session into an MPEG-H audio system. So what we have here is I have all my files, and you can everything. I got all my things sounding in here, and all I have to do, and then I want to mention this first, is we have to make sure that we have on our project setup the 3D pan mode set up to 3-layer, which is a requirement for working with MPEG-H audio. And the other thing that we have to do in that sense, again, is to have our buffer size in divisors of 1024 buffer. So we're working in the half of that, which is 515 and 12. I'm sorry. So those two have to be already there so that we can create our project and work within the MPEG-H environment. And I have my content here, and all I have to do now is go to project and open my ADM Authoring Window and tell him that we want to create an MPEG-H audio session. So setup assistant opens. I want to create a mix, or else I won't be having a renderer, and I want that to be in any of these formats that we want. In this case, it's going to be 7.1.4, and we can create objects and create a bed, and we can also send all the files that I have to that bed. And that will be useful in the sense that in that way, everything will sound. Because if we don't do it that way, until we route all our tracks on our session to our ADM authoring window, they won't be sounded. And I don't want that to. I want that to happen in two senses. The first, in this video, I have two dialogues. So I have an English version and a Spanish version of the voiceover. So I want to make them to work as only one sounding at a time. And for that, I'd rather not send everything to the bed that we are creating. And that's all I have to do. I just create this. I can say okay, and he opens and creates everything for me. So I have already, as you see, the only thing that I have is my standard bed of 5.1, because it's the only thing that I have added. He has added to the ADM authoring window. So now we have to bring all of our channels here, and what we're going to do is use this first bed to use with our music background. We'll create a second one for my sound effects, which is this backgrounds track. And we're going to select both languages here and reopen the window so that we can here create objects from selected tracks. And now I have all these tracks in here that I can I want to bring from these two the names that they have in the track. So apply source track name to those tracks. And now I have my music and my background and everything here. And as you can see now, I can't listen to everything yet. And the reason for that is because we haven't created a preset. So we have no presets in here. And before that, I want to make sure that these two languages won't be sounding at the same time. And for that, we have the tool switch group, which is creating a group that will hold our dialog in there, and unless we choose one, he will only play one. No, everything that I put in there will be selectable for the user. So I take my original language and put it in the dialog, and I put my dubbed language and put it in the dialog. And now everything that is within the switch group will be a selectable item for our audience. And we can create a preset that it will start with the one we selected, but he can change it afterwards. I'm sorry. So now we can create our first preset. And this preset will have everything that we have. Our music, our backgrounds, and our dialogue. And if I play it now,
Costa Rica's coastline is a
I can go here to my section of monitoring and choose the language in here.
Costa Rica's coastline is a tapestry of natural wonders.
Sorry.
From the golden shores of
Desde Manuel Antonio hasta la belleza aislada de Playa Conchal. Sumérjase en las
waters, home to a kaleidoscope of marine life.
So we will explore a little bit more of the renderer later on when we do it manually, but the manual setup. But basically, all we have to do is use the setup assistant, tell him what do we need in the session to create. If you want to hear everything that you have in there beforehand and before you do the distribution of your session, you can add everything to a bed and route it all in there. If else, the easiest way is just to create it and then assign from the ADM authoring window what do we want to do with it. So, and basically once we do that, we bring our renderer here by clicking on the gear icon, and we will find ourselves with all the stems and things that we have added to the ADM window, and then we can create our first preset with this as we did, and we'll be able to hear it. Okay, that's what we did. So let's go to the manually version of this, and we will explore a little bit more of the renderer in there. So now we want to set up this manually, which is very easy. Again, all we have to do is remember, firstly, that we have to use our 3D pan mode, 3D free layer mode. That's one thing that we have to do. And the second thing that we have to do is to remind ourselves that we have to be using a divisor of 1024 buffer size. In this case, we're using 512. All that set up. So all we have to start with is opening our audio connections and add a new output bus. In this case, I'm going to call this renderer 7.1.4, and let's put that in the session. We have to make sure that it's set as a main mix, because we may have something else in here but this one should be the one that is set as main mix, as it is. And we don't want this to be connected in my case specifically because I want it to be used by my control room. Once we have done that, we have to send the audio from these tracks. I recommend to do is send them all to the renderer so that we can now have audio.
Imagínese rodeado de arenas deep.
And now we simply go to our render bus and bring the renderer plugin. And now here it is. And obviously it shows errors because there's nothing connected to it. So to connect everything to it, we go to our project window, open the ADM Authoring Window, set it to MPEGH, and we have to add a couple of beds, and we want a couple of objects for our dialogues. And we decide in here, this is going to be my music, this is going to be my background, this is my dub, and this is my original language. And once they are in there, I select them all, and this is important, apply source track to that. See, everything changed in here, so now it's categorized in a way. And the second thing that we have to do is, since we know we have two dialogues and we want to hear one only, we have to create a switch group, which allows us to have several things to be chosen by the user to hear, in this case, dialogue. So we send this one, the switch group, let's call it dialogue. And now we send our dub to that group, and we go here and do the same thing. And now we have music. Let's call this background. We can define it in here as effects, the music as music. And once we've done that, we can go to our presets and create our first preset having everything that we just added, and we can monitor that.
Imagínese rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía relajante
Soothing melody of the ocean waves.
de Costa Rica es una obra maestra de
Natural wonders.
And now everything's working. So now we will explore a little bit of the renderer for the MPEGH. So I'll be right back so that we can explore everything about this renderer. Okay, so this is our renderer, and basically what it does is it lets us distribute everything that we have in our session to come to presets, to create presets that then we can decide how the content is going to display itself and how it can interact with our users. So basically we have our components, which is basically our smallest unit of sound, basically audio tracks or something like that. And again, we have here our music, we have our backgrounds, and we have our switch group, which already know from the prior tests that it only allows us to select one of the things that are in that group to be heard out at the time, and that's something that we can give as an option to our client. We can have, let's say, 2 soundtracks and 2 musical tracks different, or the option to have different languages as we have been doing. So in this case, all we have to remind ourselves is that in this case with Dialog, we can set or define interactivity settings. And those settings will be the top or as far as our user can go in terms of gain, azimuth, and elevation. In this case, you can see our dialog can be lowered up to 3 dBs and raised up to 6 dBs. And it has this 100 degrees of azimuth on the left and the right sides. And the elevation can be rose by almost 50 degrees, okay? Let's make it 50 degrees, okay? So this is something that when we go to our monitoring system, if we allow our user to have an option to handle those settings, they can actually do that and move them within the range we're defining here. So we can say that we can put the music, he can lower the music up to, we had it like in 10 dBs, and we can put the background noises and the sound effects up to minus everything, or not here at all. And now we can create, this will be parameters that he can use. Big backgrounds, they are not included into any groups or anything like that. We can change our colors and stuff. So this is it, basically. Now we go to presets and we can create presets in here. The first preset that we did, it has everything that we have, as it is mixed, as it is. So, and it has this, for example, that we were mentioning before. In the case of the dialog, we can let the user change the gain of the dialog, or the position in the case of the elevation and the of the azimuth. And this one that clicks anchor is in the case that we have a dialog. This will be something that the loudness measuring will be measuring. If this is the one that we're selecting. Okay, this is important, and let's say this is important. Let's create a preset then. For our user to be able to switch, not only the dialog, but to able to move the volume and the position for the dialog. And let's call this interactive. So now, when we hear to interactive, it's active in here and it's active in here, we can choose. We can move these parameters within the range we define on our components, okay? So,
Imagínese rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía.
It cannot be lowered less than 3 dBs.
Imagínese rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía relajante de las olas.
But it can be raised up to 3 dBs, okay? And the music, it is not an option in here. But we can also change
rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía
position,
relajante de las olas del océano.
Okay,
la costa de Costa Rica es una obra maestra de maravillas naturales, desde las doradas orillas.
And we can create another preset. Let's make it called BO present, where all of our tracks are in there, but our music is being lowered 10 dBs and our dialog raised 6 dBs, but the user can interact only with the gains of those two, okay? Now we can monitor that. BO present, and that will be...
Imagínese rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía relajante de las olas del océano.
Mix.
La costa de Costa Rica es una obra maestra de maravillas naturales, desde las doradas orillas de Manuel Antonio hasta la belleza aislada de Playa con...
Okay. So this is basically what we can do with the with the presets. We can create those scenes that we can show our client or our user to interact with the content that we created. And this will be very useful in terms of this. For example, we're trying to hear a documentary like this one, and it's a very loud environment. We can bring those ambiances down and that music down so that we can pay attention to dialogue. Or it's a soccer game or a sports event and we want to turn off the narrator, or we want to have a contest that we did and we can hear the soundtrack of different composers that play to the same cue in the music, to the same cue video, different kinds of music and stuff like that, okay? So the renderer does that for us. We can create our components, which is basically our content. Then we create presets and scenes, and then we can monitor that, and we can change the monitoring conditions in here. For example, I can hear it in binaural.
Imagínese rodeado de arenas tibias y la melodía relajante de las olas del océano.
And we can hear that, let's say, in any of these formats that you can be able to monitor. Okay, so let's put it obviously in stereo, which is the one we are using. We also have a panel monitor, in here that we can see what we're having, where is everything pointed at. And we have this click button here that we can measure loudness for tracks in here. And we will go in depth in another video for that, but we have our loudness in there. And we also have our indicator of failures in case we have something wrong with our session. And we can export, and we have our settings in here, and we can decide what we're working with, okay? So the other thing that I wanted to show you is that we have the localization and down mix settings that we can decide how to down mix our 5.1 to stereo or whatever. And we can decide how do we use dynamic gain. That is something that we're going to explore, and the loudness measurements that we just did. We're going to explore that in a content, how to create content for MPEGH video that we're going to do next. So that will be coming up soon, and we will be speaking about this. So basically, this is our renderer for MPEGH audio. So that was basically it. It's a very simple way. It's a very simple thing to create an MPEGH audio session in Nuendo. There's basically 3 procedures that we saw, creating it with using the template that comes with Nuendo, using Setup Assistant, which makes it very easy, and manually that you see, since it's integrated with Nuendo, it's all simple and it's all very easy to do. We will have a next video where we are going to talk about how to create content for MPEGH audio and have certain considerations, and we will explore the rest of the tools on the renderer in that sense, and we will be exporting the audio and taking more things in depth, but using the panel and mixing and creating content with it. So thanks a lot for staying with me throughout the video, especially because I'm a little sick, so my voice is not as well as ever, as always, so I'm sorry. Thanks a lot for that, and we'll see you on the next one.